All right, so yeah, welcome everyone. To the launch of the Open Summit 2024. And yeah, shortly we'll be talking a little bit about what the Open Summit is for those people who don't know. But then after that, we'll be going right into a panel discussion on collective action towards open mapping for climate change. But since we are talking about collective action, this session will also be a bit collaborative. We do have a notes document that I'd love everyone to go to, especially if you're joining on your computer. We do have a small exercise for the icebreaker, where I would love us to go in. So yeah, this is the document, which has also been shared in the chat. And if you go down to the icebreaker section, I would love you to share your name, the city you are joining from, your social media handle, if you'd like to connect with others on the call, and also share one thing that has brought you joy this week. And since we all love emojis, also add an emoji to kind of represent that thing that brought you joy this week. And I can see some inputs are already in there. Let's wait for a few more to come in, and then we would continue. We do have Kata, who is joining us from Tema, Ghana. And Kata is also one of our panelists for today. One thing that brought joy to Kata this week is, his upcoming 4th birthday. I think it's still coming up. So happy birthday to you, Kata, in advance. Elizabeth, who's joining us from London, is a new mapper as of yesterday. And so very happy to be here. Radley from New York, works with the New York State Department of State Planning. Thanks for joining. Nicole joining us from Germany, and is also helping out with this event. Thanks, Nicole, for helping out on the tech behind the scenes. Let's continue. So this is the document we are going to be using for taking notes throughout the session. So feel free to collaborate as well, anyone on taking notes. But just to remind everyone that this session follows the hot code of conduct. And just to summarize what that is, I just want to encourage everyone to be friendly and patient with each other. Be welcoming, be considerate, be respectful. Also be careful in your wording, phrase, and tone. Let us assume that all communications are positive. When we disagree, let us try and understand why. And we want to also discourage some behaviors. So any verbal, written, or physical abuse is not tolerated, or any discrimination of any person. Thanks everyone for filling in the notes. Just giving you one more minute for that. Go to the icebreaker section, add your name, the city you are joining from, your social media handle if you'd like to connect, and also you can put in a bracket which platform. One thing that brought you joy this week, and an emoji to represent it. And Nicole has just shared the link again in the chat. So the link will remain open throughout the session. And as you continue filling it in, I just want to go back to the slides. And I'd like to take us through a short presentation about the Open Summit before we go into the panel discussion. So to start off with, I just want us to, talk a little bit about, the Hot Summit and what it is. and also, how did it start and where is it now? And I have just a quick story map here that I want us to go through. The Hot Summit, really what it is the global meeting for the humanitarian open mapping community. It's like the annual event where we all get to meet. And it really started in 2015. I think some people on this call attended that event. Shout out to you if you were in this photo, but that was in Washington, DC in 2015. Then in 2016, it went to Brussels in the Belgium. That's where we hosted the Hot Summit that year. 2017, went to Canada, Ottawa. Again, a shout out to anyone who's on the call and attended that Hot Summit event. 2018, it came to East Africa. That was alongside Phosphor-G in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. 2019, went to Heidelberg, German. But in 2020, it was virtual. We all know why. That's when COVID hit and everything had to go online. So the summit that year was virtual. Same as in 2021, we're still locked indoors. Everything was online. But when things opened up in 2022, we also had a different kind of summit. So we really spread the summit, the concept of the summit where I bring everyone in one place changed a little bit. Wanted to have collaborative events. So the Hot Summit kind of spread out. So we had like 13 events across the globe. With a reach of about 3,000 participants and 113 sessions that were directly enabled by the Hot and Summit. You can realize that it was called by the UN Summit by then, and the name has changed a little bit. Now we are calling it the Open Summit. So there was a confusion with the UN Summit. That's why we wanted to make sure, there is a kind of a clear difference between the Hot Open Summit, and the name now will be the Open Summit going forward. But you can see in numbers what kind of reach we had through Open Summit. So a big shout out to you all who attended any Open Summit events last year, but also those who organized and collaborated with us on that. This year we are launching today we are launching the Hot Open Summit. We launched this about 2 weeks ago on social media and on our website. But today we are having this virtual event to kind of mark the launch. So in a few minutes, I just want to go through what the Open Summit is. So the Open Summit really is, a remake of what we had last year. It's a program that fosters global event collaborations within the humanitarian open mapping movement. So the aim is really to extend the reach of open mapping, to promote open data awareness, to facilitate collaboration and collective action within the open mapping community. And you can see the keywords we have for the Open Summit here in red. So to drive strong networks and collective action towards humanitarian open mapping. And that's why we decided, for this launch, we want to have a discussion around collective action towards open mapping for climate change as one of the challenges that can be tackled through collaborative action. We do have 3 categories of events that we want to support this year as part of the Open Summit program. The first one are conferences. So these are conferences that are already existing, but that are focusing on open mapping, humanitarian and development work that is relevant to open mapping. So we want to collaborate with, local organizing committees of these conferences especially in hottest priority countries. But the aim really is to leverage on the support of these established conferences, and we have kind of collaboration. So the funding range for this, in case you are looking to collaborate with us, is between 5,000 and 10,000 USD. The second category is open mapping contributions to third-party events. And this is a new category. We had some bit of such events last year, but wanted to make it more clear that we can also collaborate on such events by having it as a specific category. So what are third-party events? So what we are looking for in this is really to bring humanitarian open mapping to new and relevant audiences. So this can be organizing a satellite event. It can be a track within another event that is happening, but that track is around open mapping. You may host a social event as part of, another event and just bring people within the open mapping community together at that particular event. So yeah, it can be a UN event, can be an open data event. It can be any other type of event. It's not specifically open mapping, but you want to bring, discussions around open mapping to that conference. So yes, you can also apply and we can collaborate on this. So the goal of this one is to promote open data awareness and open mapping advocacy, collaboration and partnerships, particularly in non-traditional open mapping spaces, and also with map users audiences, so that we can extend the reach of open mapping and engage with also a wider kind of network. So yeah, the funding range, if you're looking for financial support to organize something like that, is between $2,000 and $5,000. The third one are the community events. These ones, smaller in size. The funding range for this is between $500 to $2,000. But the aim is to support national or local mapping communities to come together to foster collaborative humanitarian open mapping activities. So you may be organizing, an event at, national level to bring everyone together, whether it is for capacity building relationships, or even with people not in your mapping kind of sphere, but you want to talk about open mapping at national level. So this is, the category for you if you're in that category. The kind of support that we give through this collaboration is not only funding. We are also giving out, it can be through hot representation. So you may also just request, have an event and you want someone from the humanitarian open mapping network to come and participate or speak at the event. It can be through communication support. It can be through positive follow-up. You want to follow up with participants and you need support on that. It can be on M&E or monitoring and evaluation. You can be looking for networking opportunities. You can be looking for content collaboration. Travel support can be swag. We'll be having some nice, swag, t-shirts, stickers, and so on that can, make your event more colorful. Or it can also be organizational support to kind of plan for the event. So when you do apply, you can check and let us know which of these you'd like us to collaborate on. And the link for applying is on the website for the Open Summit 2024, the call for collaborations, and also ask and go to drop that in the chat. So we launched in August and we are continuing with this program until 2024. So there isn't like a call that is going to run out like in the next 2-3 weeks. No, we're going to continue receiving applications until next year, because we are running this until July next year. So I want to encourage everyone to, if you're organizing an event, please do consider collaborating with the Open Summit program so that we can take collaborative and collective action towards open mapping to new and relevant audiences. So yeah, that's a little bit about the Open Summit program. If you do have questions specifically about the program, you can add them to the notes document. You can drop them in the chat, but yeah, we'll come back to them at the end after our panel discussion. So yeah, at this moment, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and just get our panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll proceed with the panel discussion. So today we are really talking about collective action towards open mapping for climate change. And with me here, I have panelists or speakers from around the globe. I think we have someone from Brazil, from Indonesia, Zimbabwe, Ghana, the last time I had. But yeah, let me give a chance to the panelists to introduce themselves. And as you do introduce yourselves, I'd also ask you to, to share a little bit about your thoughts on this topic. Okay, so let us know also, which organizations or communities do you work with, but also what do you think is the role of open mapping in combating climate change, and why does it need collective action? So I'm going to start with you, Harry, and then we'll continue to the next person. So Harry, over to you.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, nice. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for all of you. My name is Harry Mahardika. You can call me Harry. At the moment, I'm working at the Open Mapping Hub Asia Pacific as a program manager, and I also part of the OSM Indonesia community. So my little bit story, my first introduction with OSM, it's happened around more than 10 years ago, and I was fascinating actually because one of the reasons I really curious about OSM, like Geoffrey mentions about the collective actions, because at the time as a final students, I really kind of for introduction, my thesis is about disaster regarding the earthquake, and it's kind of hard to find the data regarding the disaster analysis kind of thing, because at that time I really want to see the potential impact for my analysis area, and I know OSM. And I'm thinking this is really good, because at the time it's very hard to obtain the data from the government. And I'm running out of ideas where I should ask in the data. And OSM introduced me about the alternative, how many people, even though they don't have the technical capacity, can contribute in some ways into OpenStreetMap. And I think that's actually a really interesting topic that we have today about how exactly the role of open mapping in combating the climate change, because at the end of the day, the climate change situations that we have today, it's also part of the collective actions anyway. I mean, everyone's here, to be honest, contributing in the climate situations that we have now. So I think it's not the time to blame someone or some groups about this kind of, but it's something that how we can really prevent the bigger effect of this climate change for our future, for our kids, for our grandchildren. So I think this kind of collective actions, in my opinion, it's not about only a mapping itself, but of how exactly the open mapping can involve, like Geoffrey said, many roles, like data collections, of course, but one most important, data advocacy. How exactly the data that we have gathered using OSM can be really useful by the authorities, for the government, for the ministry, or even for the UN agency to really create some policy. Because at the end of the day, we as a community, what we can do, we have a certain, limitations, right? But involving those people who have a higher, higher responsibility, higher influence through this open mapping, and showing them and how exactly open mapping really beneficial for this climate action would be really helpful, in my opinion. So I think that's the important part. So it's about the, gather all the roles and responsibility from all the different parties to together combating based on our limitations and roles as a society of the global world. So I think that's my introductions, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Harry. Yeah, interesting there about advocacy. So it doesn't only stop up on mapping, but making sure that the data that is mapped really is used for decision making and changing people's lives. So let's continue to our next speaker, and that is Lewin. Yeah, who is joining us all the way from Zimbabwe. But yeah, I'll let her to introduce herself and also let us know about her thoughts on this topic.
Hi, Geoffrey. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Okay, thank you. So my name is Leti Pondo, and I'm joining from Zimbabwe, as mentioned by Geoffrey. I'm with the OpenSummit Zimbabwe Steering Committee. I am the founder for Ladies and Maps Zimbabwe, the administrator for Zimbabwe Institute of Geomatics, and currently with the ESA Hub, communications and community engagement. So concerning this topic today, it's actually an interesting topic, well to say, because I think initially when we were doing our mapping, we weren't really much focusing on climate change like that much. So when I see those kinds of topics pop up, I feel like now we are covering all the aspects that need to be covered, because as Harry mentioned, most of the things that are happening around us all circle around climate change. So if we don't address climate change, I think we might be missing the point. So for me, open mapping now, it describes where we are coming from, where we are right now, and what we can do or where we are going. Because basically, we can actually draw the line from where we were in the past, what's been happening, and now we can know what to anticipate in the future. So all this can be done only through open mapping. So by providing the data and by providing the way forward, we can see that open mapping is really being put to use, and we really need to maximize on that capability of open mapping, so we actually address the challenges that we're facing worldwide. So on why does it need to be a collective action? I would say from a Zimbabwean perspective, we have this proverb that says, one man cannot circle a mountain. So it would be better in a local language, but I think it makes sense. So this just tries to say that, if we leave the thing to maybe somebody else or maybe an individual organization, they cannot be able to cover the whole world and respond to everything that needs to be done, attend to those floods, attend to these hurricanes, attend to as just maybe WHO or something. So we need that kind of collective joining hands together, and each man covering from their own area of interest or maybe their community, so that at least by the end of the day, we've addressed almost every community, almost every country, and we've covered a lot of ground. So this is just my thoughts on the topic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leti. I've just learned a new proverb from Zimbabwe. One man cannot circle a mountain. I hope you had said that in the local language. It would have sounded nice. But let's proceed now to Kata, who is, I think, joining us all the way from Ghana in West Africa. So Kata, over to you. What are your thoughts on this topic? And also if you could introduce yourself.
So, hi everyone. Sorry for some reason I can't turn my video on. My name is Carter Dper, and I'm a senior programs manager at HART's Open Mapping Hub for West and Northern Africa. At the West and North African Hub, we serve 24 countries, speaking 4 major languages with diversity in culture and traditions. Speaking of collective actions, as we all know, data is crucial for informed decision making. And open and participatory mapping is very important in mitigating challenges faced by communities as a result of change in climate. However, due to some inadequate anticipated actions, most vulnerable communities sometimes feel unaffected by our projects. This is especially true because our project findings, recommendations, and data insights are often created or placed in the hands of policymakers, development actors, and humanitarian organizations with the hope that they will use those findings and recommendations to design interventions and provide support to the communities. In some cases, that is true. In a lot of cases, sometimes it takes a very long time. So as a potential solution in ensuring that we have a thorough collective action, we should begin to think through how do we kind of add in additional resources to our projects to ensure that we are able to empower community-based enterprises, women and youth groups, local NGOs and civil society organizations, that they could tap into some sort of macro grant and design at least a pilot initiative that we have some sort of direct intervention within the communities, while at the same time we continue to engage our development and humanitarian counterparts to integrate these data insights and recommendations into their overall programs and interventions to ensure that they are able to provide more robust support to the vulnerable communities. So collective action involves not only as a catalyst collecting the information and sharing it with decision makers and sharing it with humanitarian and development actors, but also trying as much as possible to design some macro grant initiatives that will empower the women groups within their communities, empower the community-based enterprises to start to do some sort of smaller aspect of our recommendations so that the right intervention can be felt by the communities. And I think by doing so, we are kind of collectively, intentionally, collectively really bringing together the top-bottom approach wherein the community don't have only the maps, but they can see some sort of tangible actions happening in their community with the same women groups, with the same residents, while we wait on larger interactions to take place. So I'm very fascinated about this event, about this discussion, and I look forward to contributing more as we move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Kata. What I'm hearing there is, bottom up, putting communities at the center and making sure they are empowered to actually participate in this, collaborative mapping that requires collective action. Thank you. And let's now go to Brazil. And over to you, Alesandra. You can introduce yourself and also share your thoughts on that topic.
Hi, everyone. It's good morning for me, but I guess it's a good day for the rest of you. I am Alesandra. I'm from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And I am kind of a new mapper. 3 years I started doing open mapping with my project in Brazil, that is Urbilatam. And it's a multidisciplinary project, and it's focused on co-construction of data about disasters in favelas in Latin America, especially in Brazil and in Colombia, and how this data can be a tool for adaptation and to build resilience in these communities. And I also a volunteer at Techo Brazil, that is a very strong organization in Latin America. And I don't think it's very popular in other parts of the world, but it's also work with communities and with some kind of data. But I feel like open mapping can be a great tool to help regions that are historically left out of public conversations and enhance the resilience and capability to answer to disasters. But from my experience, I don't think that alone open mapping can necessarily make the whole process of data creation. I mean, open mapping alone is not the only solution we have. We have to thinking about how to make the whole process of data creation part of the day-to-day lives of the population in the community in question. It is necessarily, in my vision, to be participatory and to be built on dialogue and to be a process that comes principally within, and it's made by the residents and not so much about external people, because people from the community have a perception about the place that outsides don't. So really, in the end, it's a sum of different views to create something greater and richer. And I feel like that's I think about that when I think about collective action, because it is important to have external people helping, like volunteers, but it's also much more important to have the call coming from within the community, because that's where the real questions is at. And also important because usually people who live in these places already have an ancestral knowledge about the place, because usually it comes from family to family, the family that already live there, and so on. So, and also in my experience, not only working with these people, but also being a person that comes from marginalized communities, it's really amazing how they already know how to adapt to a diversity in diverse creativity and detached ways that I learned that specialists, the more academic, doesn't know, and especially public government agencies doesn't know how to. So it's really important for us to focus on. And I feel like that's a really good starting point to thinking about not only climate change, but adaptation and how to combine this existence and community knowledge to adapt for future disasters. And yeah, I feel like in the end, everything needs to be interdisciplinarily, not only thinking about an academic outlook, but also thinking about how to work together with the community, with social organizations, and with government, because then we can have a more put together action plan. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Alesandra. I think it's very important what you mentioned there, that these communities are already resilient. They have over time, adapted to the challenges that they face, some of them that are brought about by climate change. So when we do open mapping, it's not just a matter of getting volunteers from, and then just ignore the community that lives in these places, because yeah, they are the ones who face the problem, so they should also get involved in this. I think it's also in line with what Kara was mentioning there, putting communities at the center. So I think I'm going to come back to Kata actually, and yeah, just ask if you could share some examples where collaborative projects where open mapping has played a significant role in addressing climate-related challenges. Yeah, so over to you, Kata.
Yeah, sure. So in the last year, we implemented a number of projects, but two of those projects were mostly focused on disaster and climate resilience. The first was in Niger, called the Rural Water. The Rural Niger, which focuses on water access in the Sahel region. And with that project, we initially started by engaging with the local authorities from national government, like the hydraulic department, to development actors like Water Aid and the WASH Consortium, moving down to the regional authority in Dozo, and further down to the two municipalities, Fagara and Mengoga, in which we work extensively with not just the city mayor, but the youth and other decision makers within that region. We were able to conduct workshops. We built the capacity of key stakeholders as a way of expanding our data map contributors and the data users as well as building the overall ecosystem. We're able to kind of map waterways, water points, and water infrastructure, and conducted a lot of statistics and analysis in terms of the status of those water points, where they were built, the conditions, and everything thereabout. And that data is now being used by WaterAid and the WASH Consortium to design programs and initiatives to not support just the two municipalities, but also to kind of extend the issue of providing safe drinking water to the region of Dozo in the Sahel region of Niger. In Liberia, we implemented tracking flooding in rural Liberia. That project will focus on sea level rise and flooding in a district comprising of 4 clans, and those clans consisting of 38 townships. We started off from central government with the Environmental Protection Agency, with the Disaster Management Agency, with the Liberia Land Authority, the Statistics Agency, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and then we moved down at the district level, where we met with the city authorities and then the regional authorities. We conducted workshops in both national level and local level to ensure that the leadership there had a full understanding of what the project intended outcomes were, but to also kind of create an environment through which we could understand their data needs, what existed, and also have the opportunity to find a way to address data gaps where applicable. And so as part of this engagements, we were able to work together to design a data model that kind of really works for particularly the front actors, the front line actors like the Environmental Protection Agency, the Disaster Management Agency, and the Liberian National Red Cross. So we went on also training the youth of that district with a bit of challenge because the project was more in a rural community. So we had to hire high school kids to train them in the methodology of field data collection. We conducted remote mapping throughout the entire county, and we had to kind of have that station in Monrovia where there is reliable internet connectivity and access to electricity. We also went further conducting awareness on the issues using radio jingles and community engagements. We conducted focus group discussions, bringing together women groups, youth groups, and the local leadership in the different clans. And that also provided a more in-depth opportunity to really listen to the locals in terms of the vulnerability, the exposure, the hazard, and overall impact they are facing, both from the flooding as well as from the Atlantic Ocean. So all of that combined really kind of brought in a more insight, but then it also kind of created trust and buy-in from the local authorities. And the project was also implemented by local teams in consultation with the local authorities at the county level. At the project close out, we were able to build the capacity of the stakeholders. The data collected, we were able to analyze the data and kind of place the data in open formats and package them onto memory sticks or fast drives. Both all of the maps created, the data sets, as well as the open source software that we use for the projects and that we train the technical stakeholders in, and we distributed those packages across all of the technical stakeholders. The data, of course, made its way to the OpenStreetMap. The public aspect of the data made its way to the OpenStreetMap, whereas the private component of that data, we ensure that we left those ones with the Red Cross, the National Disaster Management, and the EPA. We've also went further creating a web map so that the data doesn't just either reside on OSM or reside on the memory sticks that they do have, but also kind of created a platform that the larger audience, the larger community, or the global audience could also have access to that data to be able to kind of manipulate, filter through, download and repurpose for various use. As a result of the project, and Liberia overall is a country that is on the coast, and the issue of flooding is quite very crucial across like 9 different counties. But this project was implemented in one county. And many a times, a lot of interventions have not gone in that direction. And even with the data desk review processes, there was no data from all of these different frontline actors. And so the data right now is kind of very crucial to the interventions and the planning of the National Disaster Management Agency and the Liberian National Red Cross Society. They are now using that data to kind of reinforce and restructure their awareness programs, their response and emergency programs. So we think that there is still a lot to do, but overall the project was kind of very impactful in the means that we have a lot of those national stakeholders all buy in, and they really appreciated now having access to that data that is now making some meaningful insights into their programming. Over.
Yeah, thank you, Carter. Very, very good examples of collaborative action. And yeah, I would actually request if you have like some links where there's documentation on any of those projects, to add them to either in the chat or in the notes, so that people can discover more about them. But yeah, I'm hearing, different people, local communities, government, NGOs, all collaboratively working together. So very good example of collective action there. Thank you. And I think I'm going now to proceed to you, Harry. Want to understand, how does open mapping, to your understanding of, how does open mapping contribute to our understanding of the impacts of climate change? And how can it help in identifying areas that are most vulnerable?
Let me see. Okay, thank you, Geoffrey. So in my opinion, in general, there are three aspects why open mappings can really helpful understanding the climate actions. First, accessibility. And second one, it's data scalability. I will go to detail later. And the last, it's about participatory. The first one, it's about the accessibility, meaning that regarding to tackle or address the impact of the climate change, many people will contribute, right? But most of the time, there are a challenge regarding acquire the right data or even the data. So I think open mapping really offers like alternative source or data. I'm not going to say open mapping is the very precious source of the data, but it can be really one of the very beneficial sources of data regarding to address the climate change actions kind of thing. And the second one, it's about data scalability, because usually in open mapping, for example, in OpenStreetMap, it provides the global coverage of its data at the whole world. But most of the time, the data that added into OSM, it's based on the local knowledge. So it's kind of interesting for me to know the local knowledge, but it's covers in the global aspects, global scale, right? Meaning that everyone can contribute, and we know climate change is a very global issue. It's not only one country issue. But at the end of the day, when we want to address the situations that, effect of the climate change, for example, or we want to increase the resilience of the people who living in particular area regarding the climate actions, we have to act locally. We need to involve local people. We need to involve local authority, right? So I think this is the way that open mapping can really offers. So many people really want to contribute, but they don't know how. Maybe, for example, it doesn't always have to be like a technical. Not everyone should be a mapper, for example, like older people. But what they have in the context of open mapping, and it's related to the participatory things, it's about they do not adding buildings into OSM technically, but they give the informations about what exactly we really need to collect. And this kind of information is really essential to saving their lives. At the end of the day, like I said, the process of open mapping should not really only involve mappers or technical person. It should and has to be involving authorities. Why? Because at the end of the day, to tackle this kind of climate actions, we need like a actions, like you said, and how the benefits and open mapping can be really understood by these people who has the authority to create a policy to make some future decisions about local actions in their area. I think this is also one of the really important, I think, challenge for us as an open mapping community to make sure promote these kind of open mapping actions to be seen more interesting in the eye of general public. Because when I speak to my friend, some of them still not really get what's the point. I mean, you can just ask government, they say. So, you know, I don't want to take a lot of time, but I think this is also one of the really challenging, but also like opportunity for us to identifying like vulnerable areas or even vulnerable people, like you mentioned. So yeah.
We need to make it more interesting. I like that because it can be abstract sometimes, and I think for for the people that you mentioned who live in these areas, for them, the map may not really mean anything unless it kind of solves the challenges that they're facing. So again, involving different stakeholders in the process is really key. I'm going to move on to Alesandra now, and Alesandra would know that open mapping really relies on contributions from volunteers around the world. But also, like Harry mentioned, this is a global map. And also we are kind of mobilizing for global kind of contributions. So how can we really ensure accuracy and reliability of the data that is really collected at a global scale in kind of a decentralized way?
So I mean, I know the base for open mapping is to have volunteers from all around the world come together and do the mapping. And I mean, I feel like this is fantastic when you're talking about fast response to disaster, as we haven't seen, unfortunately, these years in different regions of the globe. But I think that for the longevity of the data and the continuing updating on the maps, and especially the capability of said community to not only have a faster response when disaster happens, but mostly to have the means to have better preventions. We need to thinking about that is necessarily that residents appropriate themselves on the open mapping. And as much as it's good to have volunteers doing open mapping, it's necessarily that these communities are able to do this on their own, because then the data is more reliable and more representative of reality, since it comes from within the community. I mean, it is a challenge to have communities that are self-sufficient in systematically produce their own data, but I believe that is a challenge that can be done. And I feel like one possible way is to use volunteers who already work with OpenSuite and use them to teach such tools to community habitants, especially if they live in the region or if they already speak the language. It's even better because when we started doing Urbilaton here in Brazil, nobody from the team from Brazil knew how to do open mapping. And it was very challenging for us because we have volunteers from Mozambique, if I'm not wrong. And I mean, the language was a barrier because when we're talking about community, people in Brazil speak Portuguese and not everybody speak English. So it was really hard work to understand each other and understand a tool that was very different from what the community was used to. Another path that I feel is like the mapping projects should focus that are focused on communities need to have in mind that is as important as it is to producing data, it is to live in this community, the ability to update and produce a new data. I know it's a very hard work, but I believe that we need to think more critically about how these maps are made when it's done by external people in a totally non-emergency context, and how most of the time the community itself does not appropriate the maps that are in OpenStreetMap. So really, in practice, very little is changed when you're thinking about the day-to-day lives of the inhabitants. So Yeah, I believe that all work that is decentralized needs to have in mind that the dialogue is the way to go. And there is really not a single solution. So each region will have a different context that will demand a different response. But the world is made up of several layers and plural narratives. And we need to respect them to have a better work done when you're talking about communities. So I feel like really we should be thinking about, we should be thinking locally and not so much about globally, because every region and every community is different, and we need to respect the individuality. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Alesandra. Yeah, we need to think local, and I think one of the points you touched there was also language. Yeah, so we need also to localize these tools. So yeah, if all the mapping is done like in English, and how do we translate that to local languages? I know Harry has done a lot of localization of tools into Bahasa for mapping in Indonesia, but yeah, in how many countries do you have such a level of localization for these open mapping tools that we use? But also, keeping the data updated is still going to be, the locals who use the map and also live in these areas. Very good insights there. I'm now going to turn over to you, Lewin, and Lewin, really coming back to specifically the topic of climate change with the increasing frequency of extreme weather events. How can open mapping enhance disaster preparedness and also response efforts in the face of climate change?
Okay, thank you, Geoffrey. So to start with, I think everyone or anyone knows about something that occurs in their community or around them. Because like, take for example, sorry, I would just use Geoffrey as an example here. So let's say Geoffrey knows that maybe in Kampala, they are flooding every year and in November, So when he knows that, we have to maximize on the knowledge that he has, and we start from there. Because once we do that, we can be able to enhance disaster preparedness or even response. Because by the end of the day, we know that this occurs in this particular place at this time, and also in this particular place, this occurs at this particular time. This gives us more information and more time for us to prepare for anything that's maybe coming, or maybe something that will happen maybe in the near future. So by just knowing that and maximizing on the local knowledge that we have, and like the patterns that we've been observing in our communities from time to time, we can actually increase our response efforts. And I'll just give an example right now from the Southern and Eastern Africa, where I'm coming from. So we have this, it's called mapping campaign for El Nino. So you see, it's like people have observed a trend for the El Nino cyclones or floods. So now they know that they're okay at this particular time, and they decided to partner with an organization. After partnering with an organization, now people are called upon to volunteer to map, and then we create data sets to prepare in anticipation of the El Nino, because we now know that we have this kind of a thing at this particular time. So by that, we're enhancing our preparedness. We don't just wait for it to come, then we start again to collaborate, calling out for mappers, but we now prepare beforehand. And another thing that I just mentioned in passing is partnering with local organizations for a response. I think this thing is like this activities has really greater impact if we work with local organizations, because most of the time they are the ones who are on the ground. Most of the time they are the ones who experience this. They're the ones who respond. Just that they are responding may be different, because they just wait for it. Okay, then they just keep giving people food, taking them out, moving them up and down. But we know what you're supposed to do. So for us, we just partner with them. We produce the data for them, we produce the maps for them, we advise them on what to do before the disaster occurs. So this also increases like our efforts in responding to disasters. Another point, or maybe I would say this, I would applaud us as a community when we had those Turkey and Syria earthquakes, if I'm not mistaken, the kind of rapid response that occurred during those disasters was just so exceptional. It was very, 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 very good, because and a disaster occurs like today, but the next day you wake up, all the tasks have been mapped, everything is just up to date. That's the kind of working that we may need to keep it, not the kind of working that may be like a disaster occurs today and then I really don't know. Some communities do not even activate at all. Maybe they don't know how to, maybe I don't know, maybe I don't know how to put it. But if we can just maintain the spirit that we had during those disasters that I just mentioned, I think that was just a pro. We just did that to everyone. So if we could just do that, it makes it easier and it makes it faster for people to also recognize that there's a community somewhere that gives us data, that works with us, and it's easier to partner with others. And then one or two things that we cannot ignore is that we should keep mapping. We should keep mapping. I know we have maps, we already have maps, but constantly updating them is what makes sense. Because if you just have a map that was updated like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, right now it will not work. It will not work for today, because we are talking about climate change, and within a matter of 24 hours or 48 hours, we'll be telling a different story. So continuously mapping, especially within our local communities. I'm not saying it's bad to map in other communities. It's actually good, but just make sure you are constantly updating the map for your local communities. And also use of like some interactive maps. I would also refer to the Mzurabani ARP that we had here in Zimbabwe. We produced the maps using the Feld platform. I think those will follow like the social media platforms for what you've seen, the interactive platforms. Those are like, it's interactive. It's an interactive map. So you can trace, you can see that we're coming from this point, we have this, we have that, and now we're moving this. So there's this here. So by the end of the day, it becomes that interactive that we can use it anytime, and it can be updated anytime by anybody. And lastly, I would also talk about validation. We need to keep validating. We need the quality of data, or maybe we need to increase validators, or maybe motivate them to be producing, I don't know, or maybe just train us to be producing quality data each and every time. So basically, I would say these are some of the things that we can do to enhance our disaster preparedness and response efforts. Thank you.
Wow, I was just looking at the time and I can't believe we are left with only 2 minutes. But yeah, I think really this is a big topic that, even 1 hour is not enough to really explore it. But it was a very interesting discussion. I'm just looking at the chat to see if there is any questions from the audience, but also anyone feel free to also jump into into the notes document and add any questions that you may have there, and we can respond to them as well as the panelists. But just in the remaining 2 minutes, I'm just going to ask my panelists in 30 seconds each to give, closing remarks. How can we, foster for collaborative action towards open mapping for climate change, and also how do we take advantage of, the Open Summit and, do these events and also, mobilize collective action. So I'm going to start with you, Alesandra.
Okay, so first of all, I want to say thank you to the invite, and it's always a pleasure to talking about open mapping and stuff like this. And second, just to be very fast, to say that I believe that we can build a better future if you look inside how marginalized people and communities work all around the world. A Brazilian indigenous leader, Ailton Krenak, says that the future doesn't exist, we just imagine it. So I feel like we can imagine a future where life still exists in a sustainable way. And I encourage people who work with open data and communities to think locally and to think how we can better change that specific location and not only copy paste from previous projects and experiences. And yeah, I mean, of course, you can learn from other people, but I feel like the process of co-creation that emerging the most beautiful ideas and the most beautiful experiences. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yes, the future doesn't exist. We just imagine it. Thank you so much. Let's go to Kata. Your closing remarks on this.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thanks to all of the participants and thanks to the host. This was really a fascinating learning experience from around the world. Yeah, I think one thing we really need to do more in, as Lewin said, is mapping, but also ensuring that we are generating quality data. Because one way we can grow the supporters and the users is when the data that we are generating is of high quality. There is a kind of, experience in the developed world, in the developing environment, that there is this routine data collection project after project. But what we do, we've collected numerous data that sits into OSM. And a lot of these institutions need to be able to build trust in the data we've generated, so that whenever they have projects, they go to OSM, extract the data, and then identify where the gaps are, and then narrow their data collection around those gaps. Same with the disaster, with the statistics agencies. There are tons of information that they have that's needed by a lot of development research institutions, universities, and the private sector that resides on their desktop computers. We need to be able to break that barrier. We need to onboard them so that they can be able to, the public aspect of that data, push it into OSM with our support, so that the data overall open data ecosystem can really kind of sprout out across these nations. And so it is our responsibility, not just as hubs, not just as OSM communities, but as everyone who's involved into development work, into humanitarian work. We all need to be able to hold hands together, and we need to show the leadership in that regard. Thank you, and it was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Kata. There is a lot of data lying everywhere. We need to do something about that data. Let's go to Harry. Harry, over to you.
Okay, so thank you, Jeffrey. My closing remarks is about for everyone here that really wants to contribute on these collective actions regarding the climate change and other things using OSM and others. My suggestion is, this is also something that I always believe: the frequency is better than intensity. So meaning that it doesn't really matter small or big, that anything that we do regarding this open mapping support, maybe we map, maybe we validate, maybe we just advocate, maybe we just use the data. As long as we do that regularly, it will be far, far better than if you do like a one big project, but at the end of the day, stop there. So believe me, frequency is better than intensity. So yeah, thank you. You all have a good day, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Frequency is better than intensity. Thank you so much for that final word, Harry. Yeah, and over to Leti to kind of close us off.
Okay, thank you, Geoffrey. So I'll start with, I've just realized that we have a lot of people in open mapping community, but we have a smaller portion, but so much active. So I would say, for those greater numbers that are not really active, please just be motivated to do what you dedicated yourself to do, because this is a collective action. If you leave a few others to do it, then you are dragging us down. Please just feel motivated to do it. Focus on local impact, celebrate your successes, share your stories about the impact of open mapping, and together we can make a difference. One map at a time, a map a day goes a long way. Thank you, and thanks for having me.
One map at a time, one map a day goes a long way. So yeah, hoping to hear more of these stories on the different Open Summit events that will be happening all over the world. Calling upon everyone on this call, if you're organizing an event, please, send it in so that we can collaborate to make it happen and spread this and, get collaborative action and towards also movement building. So again, thank you so much to the panelists. Thank you everyone who has spent their time to be with us on this call. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, your morning, wherever you are. And bye everyone. Thanks also Nicole who was helping on tech.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good day. Ciao, ciao.